uh, it's doable. And that's probably one of the things that I didn't recognize, that you and Wealthy You really helped me to understand that this was something that I could learn and I could manage. And I was also concerned about the time that would require, and but I realize now that the time is time well spent, right? Especially when you start to see the returns. And so the biggest thing was, or one of the biggest shifts for me was that I was capable of learning and understanding everything that I needed to know in order to be a smart investor, in order to make better decisions that actually allowed me to see benefit. And in that first year, I had the privilege of actually doing, one-on-one coaching with you. And I think it was in our first two sessions where you showed me how to evaluate my funds and really look at the target fund that I was investing my money in and was getting limited return. And I know that's also a function of the market, but there was more, and there were other funds that I could look at and consider it, and diversifying in a way so that I could actually see more in terms of my investment. And that was something we did in a couple of, you know, uh, 45-hour long sessions. It wasn't long before I had the tools to be able to start to understand and look at these things a lot more objectively, and make better decisions that I owned, right? And I think that that was part of it as well. Not that I just relied on someone else, but that these were decisions that I was making for my financial wellness, my financial well-being, and my financial future, and that of my future generations as far as my family is concerned. And that was huge. That was huge, and it made a difference. And then we went from just looking at the retirement funds, because that's where all my money was at the time, to then having conversations about stock. And there's a little hesitance, I think, because what you don't know, you tend to fear or reject. And you made that understanding simple, right? And I think that was huge in terms of making the mindset shift that I needed. There's something that you say often, and that's, you can't save your way to wealth. And my grandmother was one who saved money under her mattress or in the closet in a little box, and that was the extent. We knew that there was some value or need to save a little bit, but that didn't do it. That didn't get my grandmother out of the projects, right? Just saving a little bit of money. And not saying that savings is not good, but that alone wasn't enough to see the kind of changes that I wanted. And so the notion of taking on additional risk or being aggressive in terms of my choices, and even in investing in stock, was a big shift for me. And we make choices every day that are considered or could be considered risky, but was I willing to take that same kind of risk for a different financial picture than what I had? And I think that was the other big one. And now, it's not just stock. My next step was real estate, and then I'm looking at what else can we do, and what other things can we move into, what other vehicles are available, so that it just doesn't have to be this one thing. And again, you've often talked about diversifying. And so I'm often looking at what else can I invest in, that will be ways in which we can build wealth, and that I could lay the right foundation for building wealth for my children. Now that I had an understanding of how to evaluate my retirement funds, the mutual funds, was to actually make some changes to the funds that I was investing in. And so one of the first ones was to move out of a target fund for my retirement, for my 401k, into a much more diversified set of funds that I invested in. So that was one of the first things. I had that was one of the first things. The second was then to start looking at actual stocks that we would invest in. And And some of that was just looking at some of the things that I commonly use, or places that I frequent, companies that we support, to start to look at making investment there. And so that was the next step. Now, in terms of strategy, one of the other things that you helped me to do was to maximize the investments in my retirement fund. And so I put in a system so that every year I would increase the percentage that I was actually investing. So this was, I think, the first time that felt like it was something in reach, right? That I could make small changes, and that would help me get there. So that was number one, making the step to invest in my financial literacy and well-being. And then the second, I guess, was investing the time, because it really wasn't as hard as I thought it was. It just meant that I had to spend the time, and we spend time on the things that we think are important. And some of us, spend hours, vegging on Netflix and binging on Netflix and other things like that. And I mean, if we take one of those hours away from watching Netflix or whatever the other TV station it is, streaming, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, we take an hour away from that, we have enough time to invest in making some wiser choices that will actually pay dividends in the end.